So I want to thank our panel very, very much for participating with us today. This is a class in community-based corrections offered jointly through the social work program and the criminal justice program. This is sponsored today. This event is sponsored by the Lister Hill Center for Health Policy, as well as the Institute for Human Rights. And what our goal is to understand some of the obstacles and barriers to reentry. The Lister Hill Center for Health Policy sometimes might seem like it doesn't really interface well with community corrections, but it absolutely does, because as people transition from one setting to another, oftentimes there are health and mental health issues that are not adequately addressed, or at least that the services are not continuous. And so we're going to hear from the people most impacted by this, who are people who were formerly incarcerated, who are now out in the community, and they're going to be able to tell us their stories. We're going to start with you, so I'm going to just let you go talk. You can spend 5 minutes or so telling us anything that you would like to tell us about your story, as much as you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Phyllis Ritchie. I was paroled in 2018, October 22nd. Was one of the happiest days of my life. I was actually in shock because I thought they was going to take it back. But to back up a little bit, I come from a long line of violence. I grew up in a very domestic violence home, and through the years, I toted that around with me. One of the biggest trauma events that I did not know affected me was the fact that my brother was shot and killed by my father in our living room. That was one event. My second brother was ran over by my aunt, DUI related, and killed. So there was two traumas in my life that played a role in my whole life. And I did not know that it did that until I went to prison, was able to work on myself.
Phyllis, can you tell us what type of, what your life has been like since you left? Like how, were there barriers, or were there obstacles, or how did you navigate?
Absolutely. Like I said, I went through that whole trauma event, but once I got to prison, I got to work on myself. Once released, you know, I had dealt with a lot of the past, but when I got out, it was so much that we didn't have, and not only that we didn't have, that we didn't know. I had never used a cell phone, so it took me 3 days to learn to hit send so that the number went through, because when I left, you left your phone where it was at, and and if you didn't want to talk to anybody, you just didn't pick it up. I mean, that's the way it was. So I'd never heard a talking gas pump. I had never checked out my own groceries. So I was almost traumatized. It was a very, very traumatizing experience, especially when, you know, you have dealt with so much through the years, and I've done 20 years. So therefore, you know, of never getting out. So therefore, everything had changed. Also, a biggest struggle that I dealt with was trying to get back into the lives of my children. They were 6 and 12 when I came to prison. They were 35 and 27 when I got out, 34 and 27 when I got out. So that was another devastating event. They, you know, I kept trying to push through a door that wasn't opened. And it was hard because they wasn't ready to accept me, but I wanted you to, because, you know, I wanted to be a part of your life after not being a part of your life for so long. But in all reality, they didn't know me, I didn't know them. So that's been an ongoing journey, and it has been a blessing. Another biggest struggle was medical and the help that we don't get. You know, when we first get out, yeah, they make an appointment, you go to Cooper Green, you know, then you come back another week from that. But in the meantime, you still have issues that's going on that you don't have to, you know, you don't have anyone to help you deal with. So that was another one of the struggles for me.
Could you speak just a little bit about how OAA was there for you during this time?
The only people that did anything for me when I got out was those of people I had been incarcerated with. OAA played a huge role in my life. I, you know, as soon as I got out, I started getting involved, and it was there that, you know, Teresa, who helped me get my driver's license, Dina, I mean, she furnished my whole apartment when I got out, but not only that, took me back and forth to places I need, gave me work to do so that I could keep my mind, you know, stable and, you know, be able to, you know, stay calm and, you know, be able to get through another day. She was there for me. She would just come sometimes and just pick me up for no reason. They took me to church. You know, they were just really there for me the whole time.
Since you have to get off, I'm going to see if any student wants to ask anything before we move on to the next person. I had planned to save the questions and answers to the end, but I know you have to leave early. Okay, so this is Katie, and she asked, you mentioned that you had a chance to work on yourself while you were in prison. She was asking, was that your own initiative, or was there counseling or some type of service that helped you through that? How did that happen?
Hi, Katie. Actually, it was my own initiative, because you don't have to do anything in prison that you don't want to do except do your state job and, of course, everything else they tell you to do, which most of the time people don't have to work. A lot of them choose not to. They claim they have issues or whatever, but that's something that I wanted to do because I realized that I had, you know, some serious problems. And once this incident happened, I realized I had some serious problems, but I didn't really know what. You know, I didn't know what the problems were or what the issues were, but I learned that while being incarcerated, and I took that time to work on them. I always knew that there was something going on with me that I couldn't explain, but again, I didn't know what or why it was going on until I was incarcerated.
Okay. Any other questions for Phyllis? So she has to move on.
Ms. Phyllis, did you have any type of social services, social worker, or caseworker while you were incarcerated?
No, there wasn't anyone assigned to me. They do that in evaluation when you first come in. And unless you have mental health issues that causes you to just freak out in prison, then they don't really do anything in that initiative. Back then, when I first came to prison, that was in '98. So it's something that I chose to do. But see, I worked in recovery. And so I worked for the ladies that I worked for in recovery. That's what they did. They were, one was a psychiatrist and the other was a counselor, psychologist. So these are the ladies that I worked for, and those are the ones that were my mentors.
Ms. Phyllis, thank you so much for sharing with us. Safe travels to your appointments.
Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So who wants to go next?
My name is Passion Farley.
Passion.
I was incarcerated for 18 and a half years. I've only been out for 15 months now.
So Passion, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with transitioning from being incarcerated to being out?
It's overwhelming. I'm still transitioning. But I was able to, when I was released, I had to come to the Love Lady Center. And I'm here now. I'm still here. I'm going outside. Okay. I'm still here at the Love Lady Center. I I had Dina and Lisa as my mentors to help me mentally with the mental part of getting out, not knowing what to do, how to do. Learn how, like Phyllis said, learn how to use a cell phone. Um, from learning how to use a cell phone to just adapting back to the life of what was going on out here in the world that I missed out on for 18 and a half years.
And did you say you're at Love Lady Center?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what's going on there right now?
Right now, I just got through doing my third COVID-19 test, which I'm negative. And we under a light quarantine here. I'm on staff. I'm a graduate. I graduated in January. I completed their program. I completed the Dana Project program. And I'm on staff at the Love Lady now. I work in the medical department.
And can you describe how you see the role of OAA in helping people transition into the community?
OAA have been tremendous, a tremendous help for me. Like I said, Dina and Lisa have both been my mentors. They have talked to me, spent time with me. My mom passed 6 months after I was released, so they helped me cope with that and deal with that. Um, they there. I mean, when I need someone to talk to, if a situation going on, they're there for me. And I've also introduced a few of the women that still are incarcerated to the OAA to let them know that when they get out, they have somebody to talk to, because that's more, you can get somewhere to stay, you might get something to eat and some clothes, but that don't help your mental state. And to have someone that have been where you've been and have been out and have accomplished things helps you know that you can do this and that you don't have to think back to your old thinking or say, hey, I ain't no sense of me being out here, I live better in the prison. They let me know that it is better out here. It's hard, but I have them to help me either way.
Great, thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to the panelists, and then you guys can ask your questions at the end, okay? Since we don't have anybody else that has to go right now. So who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead and go.
Oh, great.
I'd say some of the hard issues I've dealt with coming out of prison would be everything from getting an ID to a social security card to getting to work, to meeting my financial obligations with my parole officer, for housing, for food, for every little thing that's taken for granted on a day-to-day basis. I struggle with to try to come up with on a day-to-day basis. You can't do one thing without the other. You can't get up and go to work if you don't have an ID. You can't apply for food stamps if you don't have an ID. If you don't have an ID, you can't get a job. So you're trying to juggle all these negative attributes to getting out of prison and the things that you lose when you go in there. And you try to figure out and put it all together the best that you can and tap into what resources you can. When I first got out, I didn't have anybody. I wasn't tapping into no resources, had no family, I had no friends. I was on the streets, cold, I was hungry. I was in a tent for about 7 months. And it took tapping into a couple of these resources for them to drag me out of where I was at and to kind of light a fire up underneath my ass. Because I got real comfortable. I got real comfortable with doing without. And when we start doing that, then we don't go further in life. We kind of neutral. So it's been extremely difficult. It's been extremely difficult getting out.
How long were you in?
I've been down 3 times now in the past 10 years. I've done about 7 years.
All right, Lisa?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. I should have went first because I'm crying. Got to get off the camera because I'm crying. Um, Hi, my name is Lisa Gus. I was sentenced to 99 years as a Texas Department of Corrections. I did 25 years. I was released 2009, 9/11. I had a I had a mentor that picked me up from the gate of prison, took me to her home. What she did was she really basically just really took care of me. She wouldn't allow me to get on food stamps. I was trying to my best to maneuver the best I can. I felt bad because I wasn't contributing to the house. I refused to get my ID because I knew that I was going to get driver's license because I was believing for me a car. So I got my driver's license. She was there to help me, to support me for my driver's license and things that I need and for my fees and stuff like that. I will fill out application after application after application. They denied me for a job. So I said I was going to get in school. So I got in school. You talking about something in school. I couldn't really focus. I couldn't concentrate in school. I didn't really know that I had anxiety problems, but I found out later in life that that's what there was. Found out that I had a hearing problem from being incarcerated. So next thing I know that I came home to visit, and I was in Bible studies. I was going to church. I was doing my groups that the parole board had asked me to do. I went home, came back. She told me that I had to leave. She basically told me I had to leave because I wouldn't agree to believe the way she believed and to tell somebody that about God that I didn't believe in. So I was homeless on the street. I had a car, but I didn't know nobody. I didn't know nowhere to go. So I just turned back to the church. So when I turned back to the church, they put me in I lived in a lady house when she went to Africa. I stayed in her house, and then when she came back, I went to another lady house. The parole board told me that I need to be with my family, so they sent me back to Alabama. When I got to Alabama, I tried to get resources. I tried to get help. This is a year time now. I tried to get help and everything. And the guy that I knew that was in prison fellowship talked to Deborah Daniels about me, about OAA. Deborah Daniels came to my house and picked me up. And I was a part of OAA. And I cannot tell you, and I tell people, I fell through the crack. Because what I mean that I fell through the crack, that I had been out for a year. No one would give me no service. No one would allow me to get anything to help me further along in my walk, my mental state, my emotional state, nothing. But I came with a job and I was working Taco Bell. I worked at Taco Bell, and I can't tell you, and I don't tell you, you ain't got to ask me. OAA has been my lifeline because they understand me. They knew what I was feeling. They know what I was going through. They knew when I was upset. They helped me financial. They helped me spiritual. They helped me emotional. It really a blessing because 25 years in incarceration and being conditioned to a certain thing, you can't go to somebody that who don't understand you. They don't understand. My family didn't understand me. My family didn't know when I was going through the changes, when I was drawn back into my room and I ain't want to socialize with nobody. They didn't understand that. But when I went to Offender Alumni and get to talk to and tell them, and we get to express what we feel, then someone in that group gonna help us and show us how to walk. I began to network. See, I didn't have no networking in Texas. And see, one of the things is you got to have some peer-to-peer support. It is so important because it's not, you're gonna fall through that crack, man, and people are gonna just forget about you.
Great.
And I want to share this. The anxiety level is so high because coming to live in a different world that you have not lived in 25 years. I never lived a life or a life on life term because I was in the street. I got in the streets when I was 14 years old. Next thing I know, I'm in prison with a 99-year sentence that they ain't gonna let me out, that I was gonna die in that place. And now I'm out, and man, I ain't even know how to live.
Great. Thank you so much. Andrea, I think that's the last one, right, Dina? The last participant? Okay. Andrea?
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm what they call a habitual offender. That means that I have been down the road several times. So I went down the road 3 times, and each time I came home, I didn't know about OAA. I didn't have no connections, no anything. And so I was out there, and people seem to turn their backs on you if you have a record. So what I did was go back to what I was familiar with, and I ended up back in prison. I was let out of prison, and I came to DC to take care of my mom because she was ill. So I was taking care of my mom, and then when she died, I didn't have anybody. Um, so I ended up trying to kill myself. Um, I ended up relapsing in 2001, and I ended up back in prison, in which I did 7 years. Um, Upon making parole, my cousin did go down to the parole board to speak up for me upon making parole. And they looked at my record, but not knowing the person. You know, a lot of people look at your record and feel that you're this terrible person. What the paper says really don't tell about the individual. So I came back, I made parole, I came home. Still, I didn't know about no networking and other people. I knew about like the Rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and AA and all that, but I didn't know about the prison fellowship or anything. I've heard about it in prison. And I think because I wasn't searching and people wasn't really doing a lot of talking about it when I came home. So what I had to do out there, I was staying with my cousin, and it really got rough because she looked at me as her housekeeper, her maid, her whatever she needed me to do. And one time I wasn't home when she came, I wasn't there when she came home. And she called me and told me that she was very upset with me because I wasn't there to fix her plate. So we're talking about a grown woman upset because I'm grown. I wasn't there to fix her plate. I just felt that wasn't for me. So I ended up going to stay in a hotel and trying to maintain and do what I needed to do. And it was hard to find a job. So my daughter had happened to call me. She lived in Maryland, and um, she had asked me to come here. So I'm in Maryland, but I work with OAA, long distance. But since I have been a member, so I came here and I started to work, and I opened my own cleaning business and did some other things. But then I found out, Dina contacted me, and I found out about OAA. So I've been connected to them ever since. But since I've been connected, it's just have been something that I definitely want to be a part of, because I see all the things that they do, how helpful they are to people. And just watching Dina and how she moves and all the time and effort she gives to other people just really touched my heart. You know, and Lisa, she's just phenomenal. Um, you know, and being a part of this organization, what I found that no one is never too busy, you know, and they reach out to you, like Passion was talking about, the support that you get mentally is just true. Um, you know, and you can just, your phone might click anytime during the day, and it's somebody offering you prayer. It's somebody reaching out for you to talk to you. Everybody's checking on each other and trying to see if they're okay. And, you know, and studying more about the organization, I found that, you know, they're giving jobs to people. They are trying to help them financially. They're making sure they're okay where they are. So I just found it to be very important. But what I also know that is, you know, when you have a record, like I was saying, people look at the paper and they don't know the individual. They just see what's wrote down on paper. And it's a lot of us that are out here are able to work and do good things, but it's just hard to find a job. It's hard to get help, you know, and I found that when I first got home, I also found that, you know, I had needed like Social Security card, birth certificate, and other things that I had needed. And it's just hard. But with OAA, the things that you need, they reach out to you, they come out, they take people to places they need to go. They help find jobs. And I just think it's just important. And I know that at one time I was struggling with, I want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this? And the answer kept coming back, yes, yes, yes. Because it's just so much they do for inmates, for people just like me that's coming out of the system and don't have any help, don't have any resources. So I'm just glad to be a part of them.
Thank you. Dina, I know you're really on here just as support. Do you want to talk, or do you want to just be support? You do what you want to do today.
Well, hi everyone. I am truly here just to support my peers, to show them love and to encourage them to share their stories and their truth. I'm really in awe, and I'm most humbled that you guys have picked our organization to sort of kind of get some insight on those that are directly impacted by a penal system, and to truly hear the need for reform and where and how the peers actually fit into the scheme, not only a reform, but of the resources that are available when it comes to the reentry efforts that are available to individuals. But so much has changed since the time Lisa came home. I have a PO on the line now watching live, and she's saying maybe the probation officers didn't have the education to point people in the direction of resources. But what you don't know is that many times when persons got the resources, if it was after 60 days of their release, they no longer qualify for certain organizations. Lisa said that she was in Texas for a year, and so she was transitioning in two different dimensions. One of those dimensions was she was coming out of long-term incarceration. She had went in at 20 years old. She was exiting as a 45-year-old woman with from 2-year-old and 4-year-old sons to a mother of adult children in a total different state. She didn't have any family there. And then to say, okay, you need to be with your family. And I think that was that probation officer's way of saying, wait a minute, I need to get her out of the danger zone. Because as we know, that if something happened in our lives, we'll call family. We'll ask auntie or mom or someone, can we stay in the basement or whatever. And so with that being said, then she come home and her family doesn't know her either. Home doesn't look the same. And she's transitioning and going through quite a few things. And when it was time to actually tap into resources that were in the state of Alabama 11 years ago, the things that are happening now wasn't happening. And so what we do is just add our, I guess, experience to the navigational systems and structures that are available to help persons go through. Now, what you don't know is that no one thinks that Passion is still going through the grieving process of losing her mother. We all have lost persons, but she has lived for 18 years wanting to come home to her mother, to get home and be in a halfway house for 6 months, and then her mother passes away. So now she really don't have anywhere to go. Her brother lives in another state, and then she's waiting on a housing program, and because of COVID, a lot of things have shut down. A lot of monies that were allocated to certain things aren't available anymore. So now she's stuck in a transitional center that's on complete quarantine right now that won't even allow her to go out to look for a job. And so they placed her on staff there, but you do know the wages that she's earning isn't the wages that we earn. And so I'm going to say that, but I don't really have a lot. A lot of times we're looking for emotional and mental support because people are capable given the right information and resources of doing some things on their own. But when you're going through and you're overwhelmed and you're faced with a lot of anxieties and the things that we do every day comes very, very hard for other individuals, we just need somebody to be there. And Stacey, thank you so much for always, always being a support. And that's all I have.
Well, I'm going to open it up to the students to ask questions of the panelists, but I did want to ask one question, and anybody can respond to this that wants to. From us sitting in this classroom, like we, as far as I know, we are not former offenders, but how could we get involved to support the efforts of OAA or to support those who are transitioning? Are there things that we could do that would help?
Well, we need mentors. One thing that I've learned is that when a person says, oh, I've been to jail or prison, our minds as human beings go all the way left. But if you would come and join in our support forums, we have a youth program. We have a spot on our website that said get involved, and just signed up for that, and just that will guide you to where it is that you can possibly aid and assist us and that's www.offenderalumniassociation.org. And we're going to ask, what are the resources that you're going to bring? What are you passionate about? Because we're talking about people that's just trying to jump back into life, getting ready to go to school. A lot of us don't know how to sign and fill out for our financial aid. It's just a lot of things in which you guys can bring to the table as it relates to helping our organization. We have a wide variety of things that we do. We have a community engagement program in which we do. It's quite a few things, but once you go online again to our website and just hit the Get Involved tab and put your information there, and then I will be, or someone else in our leadership will be contacting you. And I'm looking forward to our next upcoming months and everything, and we'll see just how many are willing to stay and hang in with it, because we're building something great. Our efforts have transcended to another state. We're actually in Georgia, partnered with the U.S. Attorney's Office, working on some of the efforts and the initiatives in which to slow down some of the violence, gun violence in our community. So
the question is, how do people find out about OAA when they are first released? Because several of the participants mentioned that they did not know about OAA while they were inside.
word of mouth is, I think, our biggest platform. Now we're on social media. However, your brilliant minds, when you say, what can we do to get involved? What's your idea? You know, what do you think that will allow others to know about us? I mean, we write letters, we send literature on the inside whenever we get an opportunity to share about the reentry resources that are in the communities in the state of Alabama. Someone can go into the prisons, but a lot of times what we think correction is doing, Department of Correction is doing to aid and assist individuals, since we do know that 85% of individuals that are incarcerated, whether they're violent or nonviolent, actually get released. And not to have them properly prepared is one of the things that the state of Alabama is an expert in. And so it's hard to get on the inside to actually do these things. So a lot of us, because we were incarcerated in certain institutions and may have someone that we're in communication with via mail, we can send some things in. Or if someone can get a phone call out, we can do that. And that's what Passion is doing a lot of. So those are the areas that we are really trying to build up and grow in. So if you all have some ideas, as I've said, let's brainstorm about it and see exactly how we can do it, because we have persons, and those are the peers that's willing to do the work. We are doing the work.
Thank you. Another question? Yes. Okay, so the question is, having been incarcerated for 20 or 25 years, when you first came back to society, what was the biggest culture shock? Like, what was the thing that surprised you the most about the way things looked and the way things were going?
Well, first of all, what tripped me out is I kept hearing cars blowing. The horn, beep, 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 beep. And every time I look around, and I thought I was so fine, they was blowing at me, but I found out they automatically have, when they cut the car off, it automatically go to the alarm and it beep. It really tripped me out because it was every time I look around, I kept hearing. Didn't realize I had a hearing problem, so the horn affected me more than it affected anybody else. Nobody else didn't even move. They didn't even look around when the horn blew. But I did like this. I was like this. That was one of my things. That was a culture shock for me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why everybody blowing at me? Why they want to blow at me for? But they weren't even thinking about me. My mindset, when I left, when a person blow their horn, they blowing at you when it's that close. But that had totally changed, and no one had even told me that.
Any other questions? So the question is, as far as your basic documentation, driver's license and things like that, what were the barriers that prevented you from being able to get that basic documentation? And what could maybe be done to overcome that?
Well, I'd have to say my biggest problem I had was you had to have one to get the other.
Mhm.
And not having that one keeps you from getting the other, which keeps you from getting the other. And as long as you got to have two forms of ID to get any ID, you're stuck. I believe that coming out of the penitentiary, you should be able to be given an ID to at least take off. Some sort of state issued ID. They do give you a prison ID, but it's not accepted nowhere. You can't do anything with it. I can't even buy a pack of cigarettes with it if I wanted to, much less get a driver's license. And it's different in every state you go to. For instance, in Florida, you don't even need any identification. They've got everything in the computer already. But in the state of Alabama, you've got to have that form or two forms of ID to be able to get another form of identification. That's probably the biggest problem I've come across.
And some organizations are working on it, but it's so small and incremental, is trying to provide the two forms of ID, like trying to collect that before somebody's actually released so that they would have that. Isn't that one of the things that AIM has to help with? Okay. All right. So here's another question. I know while incarcerated, you go through a lot mentally. Do you believe you got the proper mental health care to help you while you were incarcerated?
Not at all.
Did you get any?
No, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Unless you're sent to a camp that basically provides mental health, you got to be pretty mentally unstable to get to that camp, and they don't provide much. You might see a therapist, and they might prescribe you something mild, but never diagnose you and really take care of the problem. That's a big problem in the prison penitentiary, mental health, along with a lot of other things. But it's a very stressful environment. It's a very dangerous environment. You're all the time on your toes. You're all the time worried about surviving from one moment to the next, not knowing what the next person is capable of doing because of his mental anguish. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle, and your mental health is not any better once you get out. And then you've got to go through the sources to try to find somebody to evaluate you, diagnose you. And you got to have the funds to be able to afford that, or the insurance. So it's just a long, drawn-out process. It's a very long, drawn-out process to get defeat back.
Well, it was a little different for me. I'm Lisa, and where I came from in the Texas department, we had a case worker who would see us every 6 months, and she would call you in there, and she would tell you that you're not going home. You would never see parole. It was traumatizing. She would say that nothing changes. You can't get no good time. You ain't gonna be able to do nothing. So it wasn't a thing that it was helping you. It was sending you more into traumatic stress. See, what she's supposed to been doing is trying to see what I need to navigate me in the system, whether I need psychiatry, whether I need to go to school or whatever. She was supposed to help me. So every 6 months, I would go in there and just laugh at her because it was just messing with my mind to know that I was in there at an early age, and then 2017 to even look at a parole, that was too much to think about. That was traumatizing itself. So we did have that in Texas Department of Correction, but eventually it went away because it really wasn't helping no one.
Sound like it.
Well, for me, it was different. For me, I was seeing a psychiatrist inside, but I had a caseload worker that I guess she really liked me or really cared about what was going on with me. And what she did do was set me up so that upon my release for me to go to Eastern Mental Health Center. And so once I got out, I was able to go to a mental health center where I got the necessary help I needed. But inside, you're not getting any help, really. They're just trying to get you, they're pumping you up with medication so that you can walk around and be okay inside the institution, but it's nothing preparing you for the outside once you step out. But I was just lucky enough, or blessed enough, let me say. I was blessed enough to get hooked up with a mental health facility that I was able to go to.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is, do you have health problems that are due to your time in incarceration?
Yes, I lost my hearing in incarceration. They will move me from dorm to dorm, and when they moved me, they had this bigger, huge fan, and I always get moved by a fan. Every time they just will move me by these fans, and I didn't even realize that I had a hearing problem until I had to go take a test. And my sister kept telling me stop hollering. I still suffer with it still today, and I had hearing loss. And when I came and did my um my some health issues came up that they did not even mention it at all, you know. And so it was good that I came out just in time so I can catch it and take care of it. But it's just you have health problems and they won't even look at it. So I don't have, you're gonna have a few. The way you eat, you're gonna have health problems just based on the food you eat.
And
Go ahead.
with
Andrea.
me, I had hearing and sight problem because I was gangbanged in prison, where I lost some sight in my right eye and hearing in my right ear. But I've been home and I've able to get insurance and stuff, so I've been working on it. So it has improved a great deal.
Another question is that we've heard several people talk about their families not welcoming them back and that sort of issue when you return to community. So what do you think is the family's role in the reentry process?
Be supportive, be morally supportive, to recognize a man that's trying to make a change, who feels bad for what he's done, and he's working towards changing his life around. My family situation is a little different, possibly, than a lot of others. Most of my family had already passed away, and I'd lost my immediate family, my wife and kids, and all that in the divorce prior to. So when I did get out, all that was left really was my mom, who is in not good medical condition as we speak. So there wasn't much she could do but tell me she loved me, tell me to be strong, tell me to keep my head up, which helped me a lot. Just having her on my back helped me a lot. Having her on my side, and moral support is huge because you really get down on yourself. Situations that we find ourselves in, we lose a lot of self-respect, and that carries over into your day-to-day living. When you don't care about yourself and where you've been and the things that you've had to see and been accustomed to seeing, it does something to you. It does something to your self-esteem. It does something to your morale. So supportive mentors and family members is huge. And somebody don't have that, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what scared me, because I didn't have that. And that was, for what from my mom, I don't know where I'd be now. Honestly with you. That one person pulled me through, just her giving a damn. Help me pull.
Just look around and see what you think. Okay.
Well, that's one of the things that OAA does well. They say find one thing that you do well and stick to that. Well, the space when you're dealing with individuals with that background is so broad. It's hard to just pick out that one thing that you do, that you're going to do. And so we cover a gamut of things. One of the things that we found that was absolutely necessary as it relates to family, and we started a family support group twice a month. And that group is for individuals that have family members either incarcerated or coming out of incarceration, primarily because they don't understand. And the thing is, we grow with each other through mails, through visits, and the longer you're in, the farther the visits are. A lot of the families are impoverished, so they can't travel great distances and all of this stuff. So over the years, your connection to the outside world sort of kind of dwindles. And the only thing that keeps you connected is pictures, your memory of things, and your hope for getting back home. And so, and it's the same with the family. So both parties are actually being introduced to someone that they don't know anymore. And now you're talking about the social disenfranchisement that has happened inside of incarceration. And actually, reentry starts before you exit. And we've been privileged and honored to start a program inside of an institution 2 years prior to individuals coming home in the state of Georgia that actually involves a family component, where once the cognitive piece is dealt with the first 2 months, the next 2 months is the introduction to a supportive network. What does support mean? And so we engage family members, whomever the individual identifies as their significant other upon their exit. And we have groups with that family, as well as the individuals that are incarcerated. And we facilitate that group a couple times before and upon their graduation. So they actually get to connect in a space where they actually reveal themselves. And we talk about forgiveness, and we just talk about all this stuff that will help individuals understand each other. And many people have never been able to get real intimate with family members, you know. And so that has been something that we've prided ourselves in, and bringing an understanding to the family member. I think the first 7 months of our existence in 2014 is when a wife was at one of our support meetings, because when we started the group, it was strictly for formerly incarcerated people, just as an alcoholic go to a meeting to help them with their alcoholism. And so we started it just for that, to have a place that we can gather and discuss the things that trouble us, and hopefully help each other get past those dilemmas and come into a solution. Because many people think that persons that go back to prison, that's all they want to do is go back to prison. I beg to differ. And so with that, the wife, when she was introducing herself, she introduced herself as, I am Angela and I'm with him. And she looked at her husband, which case in point made us think about all the times that our family members have been with us, standing in front of the judge, sitting in the lawyer's office, you know, and that kind of thing, and how we drag them through that process, and how vital they really are in the whole process of it. And so why wouldn't they be a part of us moving forward in an intimate way? And once we got there, we found that it was times that they couldn't say things in the group with us because they were afraid how it would make us feel. And so at that time, now we're talking about the collateral consequences of long-term incarceration. So now we're incarcerating people. Once we get free, we incarcerate them because they're unable to express themselves out of fear of what it may do to us. And so we've never been able to communicate properly and openly with one another. So we invite that to the space. So family is a vital piece of what we do as well as our children. We're reconnecting to adult children, and we're leaving babies at home, or whatever the case may be. We're disconnecting from a past life into a life that we've never lived before for some of us. So all of that we take in consideration as we continue week by week, day by day, to be a supportive measure for those persons that are incarcerated.
Did you have your hand up, Passion?
I did. I was agreeing with Dina about, the family and everything. I'm in the middle of working as y'all, but I did tell the owners that I was having this meeting with y'all today. But about family, not having a strong relationship with them because you don't know them and they don't know you. So it's kind of hard to connect. And for me, like, my mom passed 6 months after I was out, and the family, all my family that I know, they wasn't as, I would say, supportive or was there for me after she passed. I had so many, before I came home, I'd be glad when you come home, I miss you. But when I got home, it was like, they were so standoffish, and they still standoffish. But I'm all right with it, I let everybody be what they at in their life, and I'm at where I'm at in my life. The person that I am today. So, and I think it's kind of hard for them to get used to this new person. So
Thank you. Andrea, did you want
you're
to?
welcome.
Yes, so Passion touch bases on some of it, but I also want to say that, and like a lot of our family is standoffish. You know, as long as you were there to give them something or to do something for them, they love you and they accept you and all. But what I have found that with OAA, I have a new family. I have a family that I can reach out to. I have a sister in Passion, or a sister in Lisa or Dina. I have brothers in the group. You know, so it became AAA became the family that I was missing. So and we do support, and I can actually say we love each other. We are there for each other. It's not a certain time of day that, you know, I can't call them if I'm going through, and if they're busy or at work or whatever, they will reach back out and touch and reach out to you to see what's going on. So where my family, my blood family falls short, my OAA family don't.
Thank you.
Uh, can I share something?
Yeah.
Um, you've been in prison for so long, and you long to be with your family. You long to be with your children. You done fantasize in your mind how you're gonna be. You know, you can't wait to just share this new love, this new you, and then you get out,
Don't play in that water.
and
I'm gonna
none
spank
of
you.
that is
Water.
possible. But what I realize is it's not just because of us. They have issues as well. Because one thing, they don't know us. They probably thinking that we still probably the same way, because it all depends on how you was before you got out, what you were, who you was when you went in. That plays a part of it. And the reason I'm sharing this because I have them build a relationship with my sister, Yolanda. And she told me that she said she wanted her sisters and brother all the time. And she finally got her sister. But because she embraced me and she allowed me to be a friend to her. But that was over the years as she watched me and she seen the change. They not too quick to accept because they don't want to put themselves in the position of the past too that they're afraid of. Because some of them say, girl, you ain't changed. I knew you was still the same. They waiting on you to fail. Not intentionally, based on the past. And then you got some families embrace you, love on you, there to support. It's just different. It's the different families and what you done been through and what you left before you got like if I left and me and my sister was fighting, so what you think my sister gonna do? She wouldn't support me while I was in there. But she gonna let me come to her house so I can start a new life. But what's the thoughts in her mind? You know what I'm saying? She was in prison just like I was in prison because we were separated. So she needs some help. That's why I said that family piece is so important because they need to know how we feel, what we think. We need to know how they feel and how we can come together and bring this family back together where family's supposed to be. Not like nobody else family, but what we have. But we have learned, we are learning to do that with OAA. It's teaching us how to be a family. It's teaching us when we get upset not to run off and not say anything, that to love and support. It's teaching us how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. I know that a condition of parole a lot of times is that you're not allowed to associate with other offenders. How does this work with OAA?
That's what they, it's funny because that's what they said, but that's who we work with. It's not like that today. It used to be where you cannot even parole if your brother have been in prison. You can't parole in the same house. But you know, the favor has opened the doors up where the offender alumni deal with ex-offenders because we're the one gonna help each other. We're the one understand each other. You know, even though the law said that you cannot, but the law has opened up a way to allow us to get connected with OOA and to begin to live a productive life because they seeing it working. Go ahead, then.
I think the law still stands and states is that. So now we're talking about legislative measures and why it is that we're trying to do some reforming and get some old things off the book that's the, you know, that's antique and in the dinosaur age. So When we talk about what we could do to help OAA, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a good policy issue to consider.
That's exactly right. So, yeah, it still stands as such. We've just been doing what we've been doing for the last 6 years, and as Lisa said, some grace and favor has been there. It has shown itself to be working not only in our own lives, but persons that have watched it and followed it and are a part of it that doesn't necessarily have our background see that it's really working. And we're just hoping that we can continue to forge this thing forward and continue our efforts in making an impact directly in our own lives, definitely dealing with the recidivism rate, but truly in our communities and in our families. So.
And it really is an important issue. I'm just going to add my 2 cents here to get the law changed, because if you don't get the law changed and it's just a practice that changes, it can always be undone if you get somebody in who's not favorable to OAA, or who doesn't understand OAA, or who just doesn't understand anything, which we know in our political arena that sometimes people assume roles or get appointed to roles that don't have a background in it. And if that were to happen, if there's not a legal change, then they can just stop the policies that allow this. So it really is an important thing. Even though it's working right now, it's still important to have it changed, have the law changed to reflect the practice. Okay, I have another question. This one should be an interesting answer. What was something you thought the prison system or correction system did exceptionally well, if anything?
Fed me. It's funny. I'm just kidding.
Made me not want to go back to see them ever again.
Make you never want to go back.
Make me not want to go back to see them ever again.
I would say structure and discipline and the ability to live in and through some very uncomfortable and trying times. When we're talking about the need to have a coping mechanism or strategy in your life when you're making decisions, how do you keep things priority up front and not lose sight on them when you're going through things emotionally? It did that exceptionally well. It did.
And Dina, you have shared with me a little bit that some of those types of strategies have been beneficial during this pandemic. You've kind of coped with things the same way, where some of us who have never had that experience have had a much more difficult time in these times.
Right. Even 8 years after incarceration, to be able to be at home by myself, I'm fine. To live with just the mediocre groceries and not go to the grocery store, and as long as I can open the cabinet up and do something with something, I'm fine. It did that. You know, I long to be with my grandson. That's the newest additive in my life that brings a lot of joy and everything. But to be at a distance from my family still 8 years later without the pandemic, it's been a struggle for me just to reconnect in a manner that normal families do things. I think sometimes I blame it on I'm so busy, but in truth, if I was transparent, I'm just not connected to them anymore in that way. And so it's hard to, try to go in there, and I can go back to, I remember when, but that's not who I am and that's not what I do. And it's sort of kind of still difficult for me. And I think we also, like Kevin was saying, we have diagnoses that hadn't been diagnosed, right? And so, so that may be something to explore in my own life. And so I don't, I miss them, but I don't miss them to that degree that everyone else is, because I've been distant and separated from them for 18 years. So, yeah.
Incarceration made me who I am today. Because I hated the woman that I had became. And what it taught me how to know Lisa and how to be a mother. It taught me how to be a friend. It taught me how to be a woman of God. It taught me how to be faithful and honest and true because I was in confinement where I had a lot of time to deal with my trauma, my hurt, my anger, my frustration. It gave me an opportunity because I used to go under the bed in the prison and get under there and cry out and deal with some of the things that was hurting me so bad. I knew if I was in the world, I would have never been under that bed. I would have never took time out with Lisa. I would have been running the street, ripping and running. But I found out who Lisa was because Lisa was that same little girl at the age of 11 before the trauma hit, was loving, kind, and sweet, and fully energetic. That person came out, but it grew up. I had to take responsibility for my action. I had to take responsibility for the decisions I was making. Now I couldn't push it out on nobody. I grew up in prison. I started reading books. I started doing Bible study. I started going to NA. I started going to AA, anything that was going to help to put education. I even learned how to do sign language in prison. Anything that was going to help me, educate me, that was allowed for me to do, I done it. So it was great for me. It was great for me. It's where I needed to be in order to become who I am today. Now, I'm not saying everybody get that, but I had to take the initiative to do it. They didn't force me. They didn't ask me. But I know I didn't want to be the same woman I went in and coming out the same woman. I wanted to be different.
We have had such a good time, and I have some more questions. Dina, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to email you these additional questions that I didn't have time to, and maybe the panel can give a response back and we can get it back to the class.
That'd be great.
All right, we thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us and helping us learn and grow. And we just value this relationship so much and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week.
Well, you guys are our future leaders, and we are depending on you. We really love you. There's 27,000 other families in the state of Alabama that's depending on you.
No pressure. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.